Hello students, in the previous video we have seen the Act 1 and Act 2 of Julius Caesar, and in this video we are going to complete the play Act 3, 4 and 5. Let us start the scene. This is Act 3, Scene 1. Caesar proceeds to the capital. The conspirators and others are following. Meet the soothsayer on the way and taunt him with the failure of his prophecy. The soothsayer replies that the ideas of March has not yet gone. Artemidorus gives the paper and urges him to read it as it concerns him personally. Exactly for this reason, Caesar keeps it aside, and on reaching the capital, he takes up the business of the Senate. Metellus Cimber requests Caesar to withdraw the exile of his brother Publicius Cimber from banishment. The other conspirators join him in the entreaty. Caesar haughtily refuses to reconsider his decision. Casca draws a knife and the conspirators follow. When Brutus also stabs him, Caesar is much pained and with the phrase, "You also, Brutus," and falls down dead. The conspirators proclaim peace, freedom, and liberty and assure the mob that no one else is to die. Brutus opines that men always live in fear of death, and Caesar has been spared many years of such fearing. He invites his fellow conspirators to bathe their hands in the dictator's blood. Cassius is sure of getting immortal fame for their deed. Antony, who had fled in the confusion, sends a messenger to ask permission to have an audience with the conspirators, for he wants to know why Caesar deserved death. A satisfactory answer would cultivate friendship with the living Brutus. The permission is readily granted, and Cassius declares that he has a feeling that something will go wrong if Antony returns. Exactly, he laments and says that it is the right moment to finish him off if they hate him. Brutus replies that they all admire and respect Antony and intend no harm. Antony shakes hands with all the conspirators and requests them to permit him to address the public on the day of Caesar's funeral. Brutus agrees on condition that while Antony is to speak well of Caesar, he shall not say anything harmful about them. Antony agrees to this condition. Brutus gives him the permission, much against the wish of Cassius. The conspirators depart, leaving Antony in charge of the dead body. A messenger arrives with news of the near approach of Octavius. Let us see the critical comments of this scene. The murder scene has been described so vividly that one can visualize it clearly. It is a tribute to the dramatist's power of description. Brutus commits another blunder in allowing Antony to speak over the dead body of Caesar. Antony's prophecy will become true. There will be civil war in Rome, and Cassius and Brutus will be defeated. Caesar may be physically dead, but his spirit lives on and influences of the cousins of events. Caesar's death is more powerful than Caesar's living. This is the critical comments to scene 1 in Act 3. Next we pass on to the Act 3 and scene 2. The scene is laid in a street of Rome. At the funeral of Caesar, Brutus makes a speech in the marketplace in which he justifies the murder of Caesar. And the audience is so pleased that they desire to make him the Caesar. Brutus tells the mob that he loved Caesar and honored his valor. He justifies his action by saying that not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. He further adds, as Caesar loved me, I weep for him, and he was fortunate. I rejoice at it as he was valiant. I honor him, but as he was ambitious, I slew him. There is tears for his love, joy for his fortune, honor for his valor, and death for his ambition. Mark Antony and others appear on the stage. Brutus urges the mob to say and listen to the oration of Antony. After the departure of Brutus, Antony appeals to the mob. He declares that he has come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. Though a close friend of Caesar, Antony is aware that even the mighty Caesar had his own flaws. Brutus and his friends are honorable men, and perhaps what they say may be true. Brutus has said that Caesar had the fault of ambition. Caesar brought wealth and honor to Rome, and yet when the poor cried, he used to cry with them. At the feast of Lupercalia, he refused the crown thrice, and Antony points out the fact that ambition must be made of sterner stuff. His further makes it clear that he will speak out the truth as far as he knows. Antony's eyes have become red as fire with weeping, makes the mob to grieve with him. Antony stresses that he has no intention of doing any wrong to the conspirators. He would rather choose to wrong the dead to wrong myself and you. What's it? He would rather choose to wrong the dead to wrong myself and you. He has found evil of Caesar, but he would not read it to them. Yet if he did, it would show them how much they were loved by him. The mob now insists that the will should be read by him. Antony politely refuses, saying that if he reads the will, there may be mutiny and bloodshed because Caesar has made them as his heirs. There is a determined insistence from the mob to read out the will. Antony steps down from the forum and looks at the dead body of Caesar. The royal mantle Caesar recalls proud memories of the past, but now it has been pierced by the stabs of assassins such as Cassius, Casca, Marolinus, and Brutus. He displays the mutilated corpse of Caesar, which rouses pity and rage from the mob. Antony politely recalls the fact that he is no such orator as Brutus. He draws their attention to that of Caesar's will and that of his seal, holds up the testament and reads out that Caesar has left 75 drachmas to every citizen of Rome. His private gardens and walks could be used as the public parks. The mob is now completely overwhelmed by frenzy of excitement, and they break out into a mutiny against the murderers of Caesar. Cassius and Brutus fly out of the city. A servant enters and gives news that Octavius has gone to Caesar's house with Lepidus. And this is taken place in the Act 3, Scene 2. And let us see the critical comments of this scene. Scene 2 in Act 3. The scene is important in many ways. It brings out the skill of Brutus and Antony as orators. Brutus in the speech appeals to the reason and understanding of the Roman mob. But a mob has no mind. It cannot think and judge for itself. Hence, Brutus falls. Antony, on the other hand, appeals to the heart of the people. He tells them of the great love Caesar had for them and the services rendered by him. The result is the mob is excited emotionally and forgets the reasons for Caesar's murder given by Brutus. Antony is thus a much cleverer orator than Brutus. Indeed, his speech is regarded as a classic of oratory. Next we pass on to the Act 3, Scene 3. The scene is laid in another street of Rome. The citizens in their fury slay Cinna the poet because his name Cinna made them recall the conspirator's name. This is a very short scene, very short scene. And let us see the critical comments of this short scene. This scene reveals the impact of Antony's speech. The people are fickle, rash, and excitable, and hence unfit for governing themselves. Their emotions are roused and they are bent of destruction. This is the comments over this Act 3, Scene 3. Let us pass on to the Act 4, Scene 1. Few months had elapsed. The scene now shifts to a room in Antony's house. The three triumvirs Antony, Octavius, and Lepidus meet together and draw up a list of persons to be killed. Lepidus is sent to Caesar's home to bring the will. Antony opines that Lepidus, a barren-spirited fellow, and that they must get rid of Lepidus as he was served their purpose. Brutus and Cassius are raising a great army, and so they resolve to combine their forces to defeat the conspirators. Let us see the critical comments of this scene. The scene throws a flood of light on the character of Antony. He is shown as a man of intriguing, unscrupulous nature. Antony reveals himself to be an ambitious man. He is so callous that he does not care even if the name of his sister's son is included in the list of those who are to be killed. This is the critical comment to Act 4 and Scene 1. Let us pass on to Act 4, Scene 2. The scene changes from Rome to the camp of Brutus and Cassius near Sardis, the ancient capital of Lydia in Asia Minor. In front of the tent, there are busy activities going on. Brutus is accompanied by his servant Lucius and his friend Lucilius. Titinius and Pindarus have just arrived from the camp of Cassius, and shortly afterwards They are joined by Cassius himself. Cassius makes a complaint against Brutus that he has behaved in an unfair manner. Brutus and Cassius quarrel over the wrongs each has suffered from the other. They move to the camp of Brutus to discuss matters in private. Let us see the critical comments of this scene. This scene reveals the misunderstanding between Brutus and Cassius. Cassius is impulsive and governed by emotions. The change in the behavior of Brutus is revealed. Brutus and Cassius have recruited their army in various provinces of Rome and Asia Minor. They meet at Sardis and are on their way to meet Antony and Octavius. Till this scene, the place of action was set in Rome. In this scene, the action takes place in Sardis. Let us pass on to Act 4, Scene 3. The quarrel between Brutus and Cassius intensifies in this scene. The charge against Cassius is that of corruption and extortion. Brutus accuses Cassius that he was an itching palm and that he sells positions to men of little merit. The highly incensed Cassius declares if they were not old friends, they would have killed Brutus for saying so. Brutus reminds him that they struck down Caesar, the foremost man of this world, just for the sake of justice. Is it right that they should contaminate themselves with bribes? Brutus has asked for gold to pay his legions, which were not given by Cassius. Cassius denies this by saying that the messenger had misconstrued his message. Cassius finds fault with Brutus. It looks as though he has set all the faults of Cassius in a notebook and learnt them by heart in order to rebuke him. He further chides Brutus by saying that thou lovest him better than ever thou lovest Cassius. Brutus informs him of the death of Portia. On hearing that, Cassius expresses great sorrow and asks for the cause of it. Brutus informs him that his absence, together with the fact that Antony and Octavius had joined hands, made her take away her life by swallowing hot burning coals. A council of war is then held and it is decided against the opinion of Cassius, and the Republican army should march forward to Philippi and fight with Octavius and Antony there. Brutus instructs two of his soldiers, Varro and Claudius, to sleep on cushions near the entrance of his tent, and asks Lucius to play his instrument and sing a song. While singing, Lucius falls asleep. Brutus then reads a book in his tent, and just then the ghost of Caesar appears. Fearing that something is wrong with his eyes, he asks the apparition to identify itself, for which the ghost tells him that it is his evil genius, and that it will ask his genius and that it will again appear at Philippi, Brutus sends the two soldiers to Cassius' tent with a request that he must immediately depart to Philippi and that he will follow him at the earliest possible time. Let us see the critical comments of this scene. That's act fourth final scene. The quarrel scene. It's a quarrel scene, as it is called. Is one of the most wonderful scenes in all the Shakespearean plays. It reveals the characters both of Brutus and Cassius. Cassius is a practical man and he does not hesitate in accepting bribes. In order to pay his men, he accepts bribes. Brutus is an idealist and he will not corrupt himself with bribery. A soldier by profession, Claudius has a survival instinct. Their decision to move to Philippi is a blunder and it will lead to their unloading. So this is the act 4 scene, the final scene of the act 4. Let us pass on to the act 5 scene 1. Octavius and Antony encamped at Philippi are surprised to see the Republican army coming to give them battle there. A parley between the leaders of both the parties results in mutual abuses. Hot words are exchanged. Antony reminds them of their treachery against Caesar, and Cassius regrets if Brutus had listened to the words, this revealer would have died with Caesar, and he does not have any regards for Octavius, a peevish schoolboy. Octavius calls on them to bring their forces and to begin the battle. While talking with Messala, Cassius tells him that it is his birthday and that he is not a person to believe in omen. He then recalls that two great eagles had flown as they marched from Sardis, but on this morning they had flown away, and in their place he had seen ravens, crows and kills, which signifies death and defeat. Brutus and Cassius then discuss the moral propriety of suicide and determine what they will do in the event of defeat. The two friends bid farewell to each other, for it is possible that they may be killed and so may never meet again. Let us see the critical comments. The superstitious beliefs of Cassius reveal the fact that a certain change has occurred in his character. The charge in his relationship with Brutus is also revealed. Antony's speech and action reveal that he is cunning, cruel, and self-person. Octavius, thought a man of a few words, reveals himself to be stubborn and as a worthy successor to Caesar. So this is the critical comments to scene 1, act 5. Let us pass on to act 5, scene 2. The battle begins. The calm plains of Philippi are now bustling with activities. Brutus sends messages to Cassius urging him to begin in an immediate attack, for he is of the opinion that the troops of Octavius are timid and lack of fighting spirits. And let us see, it's a very short, short scene. Let us see the critical comments of this short scene. This scene is also very brief. The firmness of Brutus is revealed when he gives out orders to begin the battle. We realize that Brutus has made a mistake by giving out orders to begin the attack too soon. This is the critical comments of the scene 2, Act 5. Next we pass on to the Act 5, Scene 3. The battle at Philippi. The battle at Philippi continues. Antony's forces have routed that of Cassius. The soldiers of Brutus, after gaining an initial victory over Octavius' troops, had begun to search for plunder. Pindarus reports that Mark Antony had reached the tents of Cassius and is burning them. Cassius sent Pindarus and Titinus on errand. Titinus has to see whether the approaching group is friend or foe, and Pindarus climbs up a nearby hill to see what happens to Titinius. Pindarus shouts that Titinius seems to have been captured by the enemies. On hearing this, Cassius asks Pindarus to come down. He recalls an event how in the past he once saved Pindarus from the death in Parthia. He points out that it is the right time to repay his debt. He hands over the... Okay, let us pass on to Act 5, Scene 3. The Battle of Philippi continues. Antony's forces have routed that of Cassius. The soldiers of Brutus, after gaining an initial victory over Octavius' troops and began to search for plunder. Pindarus reports that Mark Antony had reached the tents of Cassius and is burning them. Cassius sent Pindarus and Titinius on errand. Titinius has to see whether the approaching group is his friend or foe, and Pindarus climbs up a nearby hill to see what happens to Titinius. Pindarus shouts that Titinius seems to have been captured by the enemies. On hearing this, Cassius asks Pindarus to come down. He recalls an event how in how in the past he once saved Pindarus from death in Parthia. He points out that it is the right time to repay his debt. He hands over the sword that ran through Caesar's bowels to Pindarus and asks him to stab. When stabbed, he utters the words, "Caesar, thou art revenged." Completing this work, Pindarus runs away from the place. Titinius returns with this work. Pindarus runs away from the place. Titinius returns with Messala. He had met friends who were searching Cassius to tell the good news of Brutus' victory over Octavius. Finding Cassius' death, Messala goes off to report the death news to Brutus, and Titinius, out of grief, slays himself. Brutus and others enter and find Cassius and Titinius dead. Brutus realizes that Caesar is a might spirit still. He mourns for Cassius, for Rome will never see another Cassius. Arranging for Cassius' funeral, Brutus now announces to his followers that before the sun sets, they shall try fortune for the second time. Let us see the critical comments of this scene. As per the custom prevailed during the Elizabethan times, the violent incidents are reported to the audience. The mistaken report of the Pindarus led to the suicide and of Cassius and Titinus. The friendship between Cassius and Titinus is also revealed. This is the critical comments of scene 3. Let us pass on to the Act 5, scene 4. The battle has begun again. Cato, the younger Brutus's brother-in-law, is slain. Lucilius, declaring himself to be Brutus, yields to the enemy and is taken to Antony, who discovers the trick. But he is glad that Lucilius has been taken prisoner. Lucilius declares that Brutus will never allow him to be captured as a prisoner. Some of the soldiers are sent to search Brutus, in search of the Brutus in this scene. They are in search of the Brutus in this scene. Let us see the critical comments of this scene. The desperate situation of Brutus is revealed in this scene. His wife is already dead. His brother-in-law Lucilius is also killed. He has lost all hopes of winning. The capture of Lucilius signifies the destruction and foretells the defeat of Brutus. This is the critical comment to scene 4, Act 5. Let us pass on to the final act's final scene. This is, the Act 5, Scene 5. This scene portrays Brutus taking rest with his followers Dardanius, Clytus, Strato and Volumnius. They are the followers of Brutus. Brutus has been requesting them to kill him and they refuse to oblige Brutus. He then informs Volumnius that the ghost of Caesar has appeared before him twice. He is well aware that his time has come. At length, Strato consents and helps Brutus to commit suicide by holding his sword. Before he dies, he calls on Caesar's spirit to be still, since it has now taken revenge on the conspirators. Octavius and Antony enter as he fails death. Antony pays a glowing tribute to the Brutus, for he was the noblest of all the conspirators who murdered Caesar for the general good of Rome and its people. Octavius arranges for the funeral service with all due honors that benefits an honorable person. Octavius and Antony go away to decide which of their soldiers deserve special awards for their performance in the battle. Let us see the comments of Scene 5 and Act 5. The spirit of Caesar thus triumphs over his enemies. The Republican cause is lost and Rome will henceforth have 3 Caesars instead of 1. It is clear that crime does not pay and no good can come out of evil. That is the theme of this play. It is clear what? That crime does not pay and no good can come out of evil. This is the theme of the play. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.